August 24, 1989.
The banishment for life of Pete Rose from baseball is the sad end of a sorry episode. One of the game's greatest players has engaged in a variety of acts which have stained the game, and he must now live with the consequences of those acts. By choosing not to come to a hearing before me, and by choosing not to proffer any testimony or evidence contrary to the evidence and information contained in the report of the special counsel to the commissioner, Mr. Rose has accepted baseball's ultimate sanction, which is lifetime ineligibility.
True crime.
Sex.
Political conspiracy.
Celebrity gossip.
Murder.
UFOs.
Crooked officials.
The occult.
Assassination.
Courtroom drama. Rape.
Corporate scams.
Scandal Sheets. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scandal Sheet, your source for exhaustive investigations into anything socially deviant, scientifically unexplainable, horrifically sinister, and, if we get lucky, criminal. And in this episode, we will scrutinize the heartbreaking career of baseball legend Pete Rose. My name is Thad Helsley, and I am joined by my two Law and Order co-hosts. The first is launching her new masterclass on anarchism, Cassia.
Hello.
And our artificial intelligence engine, and also head writer for Sesame Street, Bernice.
You're walking a very thin line, Mr. Halkley.
So, let's move on to the main event, Cassia and Bernice.
Everybody on their feet here in Cincinnati and a worldwide television audience watching these moments tonight here at Riverfront Stadium. 2-1 pitch from Shaw into left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
Cassia, it was so long ago, many fans don't know how amazing a player Pete Rose was. Do you want to quickly summarize his record for our listeners?
Sure. Well, we just heard him surpassing Ty Cobb's record for the most hits, making him the all-time MLB leader. Eventually, he would rack up 4,256 hits, an unbroken record today. He also won 3 World Series rings, had 3 batting titles, 1 MVP award, 2 Gold Gloves, and was a Rookie of the Year. He also made 17 All-Star appearances at 5 different field positions, which has never been done before or since. But only 4 years after breaking Cobb's record, he was banned from life for baseball, permanently ineligible for betting on baseball, a charge he would go on to vehemently deny repeatedly for 15 years.
Okay, Cassia, thank you for that. So, what do you think? Here's a guy with a meteoric rise and then a just as spectacular crash to the ground.
I know. Well, okay, I have to just set this up.
Okay.
You mentioned Pete Rose in one of our episodes back at spring training.
And you had never heard of him at the time.
I said, who the hell is Pete Rose?
Yeah, because
right?
he left baseball in the 80s. You weren't even born yet.
Right. He was sanctioned in 1989, and I was not born. And I also, wasn't that into baseball as a toddler. I didn't know who the guy was. He's a complicated dude. He's obviously done bad things. But on the whole, I like the guy. I feel sorry for him.
Okay.
I don't know. How do you feel about him?
And I was alive then. And I was a baseball fan. There's nobody in baseball who is as big, and dominating. I mean, he was like Michael Jordan used to be of basketball. And I know he's kind of before your time too. But he was like the one, sort of like Tom Brady in football. The biggest guy in a sport that everybody, no matter, who cares about Cincinnati, but everybody cared about Pete Rose. He was the dude.
Right.
And he was very flamboyant. He was like Trump. He had multiple wives and these incredibly gorgeous girlfriends and blah, 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 blah. He was living that kind of lifestyle. So, I didn't know what to think, because he was so seemingly sincere in his denials for 15 years. I mean, he would be on these primetime shows with like big broadcasters then in the 90s, like Jane Pauley and stuff. And she would like really try to work in. And he's just like, I never bet on baseball.
Yeah.
And it seemed utterly convincing. Oh my God, MLB is so unfair. But then, 2004, he does a 180, comes out with this best-selling autobiography called My Prison Without Bars.
I know. I love the title. So dramatic.
And he finally admits to betting on baseball. He completely admits. And he goes on primetime TV on ABC on whatever the big show was, and he asks forgiveness of the baseball fans around the world that love him. But it doesn't go over as he thought, because so many of those hardcore fans supported him through that 15 years. There were protests, there were all kinds of things, and then all of a sudden he's telling them, yeah, you were looking me in the eye and lying to me for 15 years. People like me were like, okay, I don't really care. It wasn't like my guy or anything. It was like, I kind of thought he was lying, but I didn't know, it's for sure. But now he's actually coming out, and he just made like $5 million on a book. So I guess, it's worth coming out for that. But I don't know. Does that hurt it at all for you? I know you're sympathetic.
That he was lying?
Not only that he was lying. I mean, everybody lies initially, right? Everybody that's guilty. I mean, you talk to any prosecutor, anybody that's worked in the justice, it's like, yeah, everybody in jail is innocent. But for 15 years, over so many cycles, he kept vehemently denying that he had bet in baseball. And then all of a sudden he turns around with a big bucket of money and admits that he did it. And then says he is contrite. Does that bother you?
Well, the thing is, I only got into this story recently, so I wasn't being lied to for 15 years. But also, I mean, when I can't remember the name of the baseball commissioner, but the guy who in the 80s banned him.
Yeah. Giamatti, I think, was that guy. So he goes through, and we were going to get into this later. So the original agreement was he was permanently ineligible. He could apply for reinstatement within 1 year. And so I play a clip.
As you can imagine, this is a very sad day. I've been in baseball 3 decades. And to think that I'm going to be out of baseball for a very short period of time hurts. Well, regardless of what the commissioner said today, I did not bet on baseball. The settlement is fair, especially the wording that says that they have no finding that I bet on baseball. It's something I told the commissioner back in February, and it's something I've told you people the last 4 months. My life is baseball. I hope to get back into baseball as soon as I possibly can.
Document that they signed doesn't actually say with absolute certainty that he bet. But the baseball commissioner expresses his belief that, yes, he definitely did bet. And then Pete Rose denies betting. So, look, I signed the document, but the document does not assert that it was proven that I did. So I didn't. I did not. I'm just like, but the birthday of my coming daughter.
I've never looked forward to a birthday like I'm looking forward to my new daughter's birthday, because 2 days after that is when I can apply for reinstatement.
I've never looked forward to my daughter's birthday so much, because 2 days after I can apply. It's like, wait, you only give a shit about your daughter because her birth happens to be the landmark of your fucking career?
Hey, wait a minute. God. You're supposed to be the sympathetic one.
I am sympathetic, but I'm sympathetic because he's such an out-and-out narcissist. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
His tone has changed since the book came out, whatever it was, 2004.
Yeah.
Some of the more recent stuff, he's taken a totally different line in the way he talks about it.
Well, so every time there's a new commissioner, he goes in and tries to reinstate. And then they always... And at this point, the rules, because what he wants what he wants desperately is to be in the Hall of Fame. And if this gambling thing wasn't here, he'd be up there with the greats, you know, the Babe Ruth and the Ty Cobb and the Lou Gehrig and Hank Aaron and you know, he'd be in the top 10 of all guys in 165 years, right? And that's what he wants. He wants that legacy. He was ineligible for so long that he can't even be considered anymore except through some backdoor deal, which a commissioner has to authorize. So every new commissioner that comes up, he goes and he crawls on his belly, and then they say, sorry. You know, look, I wrote a book. I admitted it, blah, 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 blah. Sorry. And then just recently, I sent you an article too, because of this with the new guy, Manfred, who had also denied his reinstatement. He's like, okay, you're giving these guys. Now, let's get into it, because this was our setup, right? You're giving these fuckers who actually cheated, who threw a fucking World Series twice, 2 years in a row. All I did was break the rules and I bet on baseball. There's no evidence he ever threw a game himself. He played like he's all got all these fuckers. He played like a fucking crazy man. He never threw anything. So nobody has ever presented any evidence that he ever threw a game or cheated on an actual game. He just broke the rules by gambling. You're not supposed to gamble. That's the rule ever since the 1919 Red Sox or White Sox. Sorry, but go ahead. Mm-hmm. I'm ranting.
Okay, you brought up so many points that I would like to be able to touch on. Let's go back to 1989.
Okay.
And the Dowd report, right, which was the investigation into his betting on baseball. So in the 1989 report, I think had I been cognizant at that time and paying attention, I would have thought that I would have thought that Pete Rose was lying. So I don't think I would have felt lied to for 15 years. I just would have felt like he was pretending, because part of his deal that he struck was that he would sign the agreement if it said that he didn't bet, if it left that ambiguous, if he left it open, right? It wasn't definitive one way or the other. So I think that the reason it didn't say it was so they would get him to agree, because he had to agree to the investigation in advance, and that he would consent to whatever the ruling was.
That particular commission just wanted him out. He thought he was a stain, and he just wanted him out of the game.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the politics of it were at the time. But like I said, this guy Dowd, who did the investigation, I mean, there was taped conversations that people brought forward. Bertolini came forward. There was a lot of evidence that was brought forward.
Unbelievable evidence. All these phone records. There was just it was so overwhelming. It was
paper trail.
Yeah, exactly. Open, shut.
And again, and the worst stuff in there, in my opinion, wasn't even about betting. Like I said, I mean, Dowd said many years later, which Pete Rose sued him for defamation, for saying that, he not only ran bets, but he ran young girls down at spring training, ages 12 to 14. So,
well, I was going to get into that.
He had an Epstein side to him.
Yeah, I was going to. Do you want to get into that now?
No. Let me finish what I'm saying. So the guy came out and said, officially on paper, they didn't say that he did it, but he said before the cameras and into the microphone and to the press, I believe that he did. I believe that he bet on baseball. And it seems like that the evidence suggested that incredibly strongly. So I think I would never have believed Pete Rose if he said that he didn't bet on. I wouldn't have felt lied to for 15 years. I would have been like, okay, finally, he's admitted what we already know.
But there's this law that you're not supposed to be able to profit on a crime that you've committed. Although it wasn't an official crime, it was breaking the rules. It wasn't. Gambling is not illegal in the United States.
Yeah.
It's just a rule inside.
It's not a sovereign body,
right? And the thing, and again, I'm just, compared, and this is why he's now mounting another legal challenge, compared to what all of these people did, in the 2017 and 2018 World Series, he looks like a fucking Girl Scout who pocketed a couple extra bucks, when she sold some cookies.
I completely agree. The second point I wanted to get to is the point of the Hall of Fame. So if I was Pete Rose, I personally wouldn't even give a shit whether or not I was in the Hall of Fame, because he's already, he's in the sort of psychic Hall of Fame, right? Like, he has the most hits. He has the broken record. Everyone knows that. Everyone respects that. Who cares if
you're not fucking. If you were there, everybody that has ever played baseball, to be in the Hall of Fame or to win an Oscar. If you're in a profession and you'll when your first book gets published, you'll be like, okay, where's that fucking Pulitzer? God damn it. So
I don't think that's true. There are a million, directors who scorn the Oscars.
They say that fashionably, but then they show up and they suck cock.
Not all of them. Woody Allen stopped going.
But okay, can we talk about some of the other things he did?
I want to also mention, Rose served 5 months in prison in 1990/1991 for tax evasion, unrelated to baseball itself. He failed to report dollar millions in income he received from signing memorabilia and winnings from legal horse race betting. Additionally, he was also the subject of multiple, underage statutory rape charges. While the victims were apparently consensual partners, as they were 15 to 16 years old at the time, that is the very definition of statutory rape in most states. He apparently settled with all these women, out of court, for undisclosed monetary sums.
Does that change your view? Thank you very much, Bernice. Does that change your view of him at all?
I knew those things. Like I said, I brought up some of the other allegations that are just sort of rumors are that they were actually taking girls down to Florida or whatever, ages 12 to 14, which is a lot younger than 15, 16. Whatever.
Yeah, that's true. 12 is really pushing it, man.
That's full on. That's serious Epstein shit. I think statutory rape is kind of bullshit. I think there's a lot bigger problems. The problem would be if it was an Epstein situation and these girls were actually being trafficked. But there's no evidence of that. None of this stuff ever come forward, never hit the courts.
No.
We don't know.
They weren't claiming that. They were not claiming that.
Exactly. And so statutory
they just wanted
rape,
money.
I think it's bullshit. I think statutory rape is kind of bullshit.
Well, you got to draw the line somewhere.
I just think as far as sex crimes go, again, a baseball player sleeping with a 16-year-old girl, I just don't think it's that big a deal if she comes forward 20 years later and tries to get some money, right? She's not saying it was an assault. She's just
she's saying she was underage. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we live in a society where Joe Biden's accusers are not taken seriously, but Republicans are. We live in a society where Jeffrey Epstein is murdered in a high security prison
under suicide watch,
and nobody's fucking comes down for it. And we're gonna be mad at Pete Rose over an out of court statutory rape charge. I just think it's kind of
let's not forget. So it's not imbalanced. Remember Anthony Bourdain's girlfriend, who probably caused him to kill himself. He paid something like $300,000 in a settlement to an underage boy that she was being accused of. Raping or statutory rape or whatever, and they had to settle that out of court, which he fought the bill, and then he killed himself.
Well, because it was going to come out, and she was a very vocal Weinstein accuser, and it turned out that she was also a statutory rapist.
She's like, hey, let's compare notes, Harvey. Come on. Hey, we could do a PowerPoint on this,
but
right?
Again,
we could do a master class on rape.
Raping someone who's under your control to a certain extent when you're the kingmaker of Hollywood is totally different than statutory rape with someone who's 16 or 17 and someone who's older. I just think it's a totally different situation. So again, none of this stuff is available to us. We don't know. But if we're going to go down the list of righting wrongs of people who have done sexual assault, Pete Rose is not at the top of my list.
Let's go back to Pete, Mr. Rose. Okay, so Manfred in my notes.
I think it was 2015.
Okay, 2015.
That he first denied his.
Yeah, denies his request for reinstatement, and then Pete Rose gives a press conference, which
There's two things I learned that I could do. I could hit a baseball, and I think I can learn or teach a lot of people not to make the same mistakes that I made. I spent 26 years in the major leagues and 26 years out of the major leagues. And I can tell you without a doubt, the last 26 years were a hell of a lot worse than the 26 years I spent in the big leagues, as you can imagine. And I worked hard at it. I got it under wraps for the last several years. And, I'm in control of my life right now. And I'm doing well.
Mounting a new effort because of these extraordinarily modest penalties imposed on the Astros and especially the Red Sox. Oh my God, he's going to poop his pants. He's going to poop his pants on this. It's like, really? Are you serious? I bet on a game this guy threw a World Series and he only gets a year suspension and I've got a 40-year life suspension. So,
and it's not even a player; it's a video operator.
No, it's a $30,000 a year guy, literally the only guy above the bat boy in salary. Yeah. So it's just crazy. But is that right or wrong? What should we do, Cassia? What is your prescription for Pete Rose? He just turned 79 on a week ago, April 14th. And, the guy's going to die at some point. He doesn't look like he's keeping in shape. Doesn't look like he's getting to the gym very often. But we got to do something.
Well, okay, first of all, the guy needs a new hairdresser.
Well,
the hair is a big problem.
He was always a disco. Yeah, his hair was
always. The bowl cut thing is bad. He kept that going for way too long. No one over the age of 12 should be wearing that haircut.
Okay, you're thinking Cincinnati in the 80s, okay? Let's think of the new
I know, but he's basically still has that haircut, just slightly shorter. He still has that haircut. It's not right. But no, I think
he never fired his hairdresser, so we can put that in the good side. I don't fire my hairdresser.
I watched one of the things you sent me was a Charlie Rose discussion.
Oh yeah, after the book came out
in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
and
2004.
This discussion, it may as well be from an alien planet compared to what's happening now, because it has one of the former MLB commissioners and then some guy that works for Sports Illustrated, and they're just moralizing, and they're talking about how it's immoral and how much it disrespects the game and how he doesn't have enough contrition. He doesn't deserve redemption because he's selfish and doesn't know what he did wrong. He doesn't understand why it's wrong and all this stuff. And Pete Rose may have been more defiant in that book than he is now. But if you just compare, again, betting on baseball when no one can prove that he ever changed the way he managed a game in order to make money.
Nope. No one has.
Yeah, and I don't think that, in his defense of himself in the interviews that I've watched, is basically look, I was just doing it because it was fun. I wasn't doing it because I was in the hole like a lot of gambling addicts are. They gamble because they have they're in an economically precarious situation.
He did lose a lot of money, so he never really, he was never on the plus side. I mean, he was could be called a chronic gambler.
No, I'm saying he definitely had a gambling addiction, but he was also a rich guy.
Yeah, he could afford it.
He wasn't the guy from Uncut Gems, right? He wasn't going to be belly up at the end of the game if he didn't like change the way he managed the game in order to win his $2,000. He said he only bet $2,000 on these games. So,
which is nothing for a millionaire.
Yeah, right. Which is nothing for him. I don't know how much he's making as a manager. I'm sure it was a lot.
Well, and endorsements and, you know.
I mean, he's currently making $1 million a year on autographs. That's like, how much is Davey making?
$900,000.
Right. He's making more than managers just doing autographs.
Right. Just sitting there in Vegas, 4 hours a day. Yeah, you watched that video, right?
5 hours a day.
5 hours a day. I know, but he's in Vegas and he's got a beer or a cocktail. It's not like the toughest job in the world. So, and he gets to hang out with people who love him.
Right.
And they want selfies.
Baseballs. I mean, we'll talk about the baseballs in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, no one can say that he did anything different because he was betting, right? It's just that betting seems wrong. It seems sort of corrupt, and it's against the rules of the contract that he signed. That's what he went down for. It's because the contract that he signed forbids betting on baseball teams.
Right.
Particularly your own team, which makes it seem even worse. And this Charlie Rose clip has these two guys, one of whom is Faye Vincent. Is that the name?
Yeah.
And they're just like, this is horrible. Oh, my God. Society today. This is disgusting. People need to have their souls saved. Okay, flash forward to 2020. And we have this Astros decision and this Red Sox decision, which are completely out of... I mean, it's just like it's from another planet. Of them not even... Just a slap in the wrist is a generous way of calling what these things are. And Pete Rose is banned for life, right? Like, by certain metrics, one of the greatest players in baseball history, and he's banned forever just because he did some bets that were against the rules. And these guys literally stole a World Series, and not a single player received any punishment.
Right.
It's insane. So, yeah, of course. I mean, I think he should have been reinstated before all of this, before this happened. But I don't see how they can justify not doing it now, except that the treatment of these commissioners seems to be just to respect the past decision. Like, even if they wouldn't make that decision today, they're just respecting the precedent of it and not...
Stare decisis is what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Because, like, if this came up now, there's no way Rod Manfred could ban someone from life when he's not even punishing players for stealing a World Series. Again, cheating, especially at that level and to that extent, is so much worse than, like, going home and placing a bet. Isn't it?
Yeah, well, did you read, so I also sent you a New York Times opinion article written by two professors of law, Evan Kamneker and Erwin, oh my God, look at this name, Chemerinsky. But it's entitled, Pete Rose Has Done His Time. And the byline is he should be allowed back into baseball and be eligible to the Hall of Fame. And then basically... they're saying exactly what you just said, although they're quoting law and things like that. And the very last line is, let Pete Rose back in. So, yeah. I mean, those other things, the tax evasion, he paid his dues. He paid like $500,000 in fines, 5 months in prison.
Shouldn't even be considered as part of this. It's not part of the scope of
No,
the
it isn't.
MLB.
But I'm saying if, and you're right, it would be like in a courtroom situation. I'm sure the defense would say, "Well, that's inadmissible." You know, these other things that he did. But I'm just saying, you know, for a normal person, they'll be like, "Well, you know, he did do that stuff."
Okay, I know, but Dad, like, compared to the actual problems in our society, you want to talk about who's not paying taxes? Look at our fucking corporations. Amazon ain't paying no fucking taxes.
Look at
Apple's
Trump.
not paying fucking taxes.
Look at the president.
Starbucks isn't paying taxes. president. I mean, again,
I know
our
some
billionaires are hiding
douchebag
all their
signing
money.
balls. I know.
Our billionaires are like stealing money from people by buying politicians who then put in tax laws that specifically benefit them, and then they have the Federal Reserve print money to like save their businesses and save their asses and save their banks, and then they don't pay their fair share in taxes. And Pete Rose has to serve 5 months in prison because he didn't like disclose every baseball that he signed in 1991. It's insane, right? And the same thing goes with the sexual assault stuff. It's like, okay, a hotshot baseball player in the 1970s slept with some 17-year-old girls. Okay, is that as bad as all of the other systemic rot in our society? No, it's not. And it just seems like they're using
when they got their money voluntarily. They didn't file criminal charges. They took their money and shut up.
The larger thing, like our society likes to pick out people that they make baddies. You know, like Pete Rose, like he's the guy that's bad. Woody Allen, he's bad. Harvey Weinstein, he's bad.
Martha Stewart. Don't forget Martha Stewart. We threw her in jail too.
He's bad. Martha Stewart, she's bad. But the problem, like it never goes back to all of the consent and all of the people and all of the larger systems that allows this shit to keep happening. We need to focus on the structural problems. And I think that Pete Rose has been apologetic in recent years. I don't think he was in the early 2000s. But if you watch some of the more recent interviews, he does seem to have regret. Not that I think he needs to even show regret, given the proportionality of what he did compared to what Bregman did and to what Altuve did. Because I gotta say, their apologies, quote unquote apologies, from earlier this year were dog shit compared to Pete Rose's. I mean, complete dog shit. It's just so
well, and they didn't suffer any. All they had to do was say that
they had to be
in front of a camera. They didn't get any fines or anything.
Pete Rose has done 800 interviews about this.
Yeah.
He's written books about it. It's on his Wikipedia page. It's everything.
And he's been banished for 31 years. And
in order for him to like walk onto the grass at the Cincinnati Reds stadium, they have to get like approval from MLB every single time. And all Bregman had to do was like read off a paper for 30 seconds.
Right.
Terribly, might I add. Like,
insincerely, you mean? Just like,
yeah.
I'm really sorry, assholes.
Compare that footage of the Astros and whatever footage will come out later of the Red Sox to like some of these totally hypocritical baseball people from the Charlie Rose thing in the early 2000s, and it's just it's totally insane. It's just like, come on. It's like these like Protestant pastors who like preach all this shit, and then it turns out that they're like abusing little boys and like cheating on their wives and like all this shit. It's just like, come on. Let Pete Rose back into baseball. Give him his stupid little plaque in a hallway. I don't give a fuck. Just let him back.
If you were to reduce what you think we should do with Pete Rose to a tweet, what would it be?
Free Pete Rose.
Free Pete Rose.
Free Pete. Free Pete.
Free Pete.
Liberate Pete! Exclamation point. Free Pete. Free Pete.
Free Pete. Free Pete.
Well, what do you think should happen?
Yeah, I think they should let him back in.
Yeah.
At least put him in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest players that ever lived.
But the thing is,
and there's no reason
him.
that a responsible museum curator, just like when you go down to the Smithsonian, they have an exhibit about Hiroshima or the Japanese internment camps or, you know, the terrible things the United States did with Native Americans in their negotiations and reservations and stuff like that. There's no reason you can't talk about this. You can contextually level it and still say, this guy hit more baseballs than any other human in the history of the world. That means something.
Totally. 3
World Series, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That means something. And the thing was, when he broke that tie club record, this is very unusual. We didn't add it to the thing. He was both the manager of the team, like a Davy guy, and a player, which I don't know how many times that's even happened in 165 years of history, that you could be both a player and a manager. So that's how good he was. And like you say, I just don't know, you know, and this is the whole thing. It was like, oh my God, through the 80s and stuff. And you weren't alive then, but it's like smoking dope, getting caught smoking dope during the Reagan 80s, you know, no to drugs and stuff like that. Well, that was going to land you in prison for 5 years. You can be a high school kid and you get caught with a joint, boom. And now it's legal in 30 states. What the hell's the difference, right? And then it's like, and gambling, like you used to be, you could only gamble in Las Vegas or Atlantic City or in Europe, right? Now you can gamble in like 40 states. What the, you know, okay, things change. I get it. It was an arbitrary thing to begin with. So I don't know. It wasn't like you went out and shot somebody.
Not at all, no. As villains go, he's one of the lamest.
Yeah, when you gamble money and you lose the majority of the time. One argument would be that he was an economic stimulus program for bookies.
Well, can we?
Because he kept losing.
Can we talk about his third act in Vegas?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Because
he sells on his website. I mean, you can go see him at like the MGM Grand or Mandalay Bay or whatever.
Right.
Not
he makes like, what, $2 million a year signing memorabilia and taking pictures.
So, but on his website, you can buy a Pete Rose autographed ball.
Now I know what I'm going to get for your birthday.
$174.99.
Okay, maybe not.
You can get, I just want to tell you what some of these balls say. He writes on some of them, sorry, I bet on baseball.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Now, there's also one for $299.99 that says, sorry, I bet on baseball. That is signed by both Pete Rose and, get this, Robert Manfred.
No way.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, why would Robert Manfred sign that ball if he won't even reinstate him?
They're in business together?
Yes! They're in business together. They're grifting on the Pete Rose Bad Boy Act.
Wow.
It's crazy. So, and that one's $300 as opposed to $175 just for Robert Manfred. He sells one that says, I didn't do steroids. One says, I wish I shot Bin Laden. One says, Mr. Trump, make America great again. So we know who he supports.
Yeah.
He's got a There Is No Crying in Baseball one.
Okay.
And then one of my faves is hits 4,256, steroids 0.
Yeah, he was never implicated in any. I mean, that sort of came after his time. That was sort of a 90s, 2000s thing.
Okay, so you can also have dinner with Pete. This is reading from his website. At a first-class restaurant in Las Vegas like The Palm, Smith & Wollensky, 9 Steakhouse, or a similar restaurant of your choice. We believe that should you be alert for your dinner with Pete, this will be one of the funniest, entertaining, and interesting evenings you will ever experience.
Where did you find that? Is that his website?
His website! His entire job is just being Pete Rose. This is what he does.
Yeah. Well, we're going back to the locker room on this episode, folks. I want to thank my 2 amazing teammates, Cassie and Bernice, for their MVP work today. We hope you'll follow or subscribe to Scandal Sheet on your favorite pod platform. And we'd love it if you'd leave us a shameless, over-the-top rave review on Apple Podcasts especially. That helps us build audience. Also, we want to hear from you! You can reach us online at scandalsheetpod.com, Facebook, or Twitter. Or just send us an email to contact@scandalsheetpod.com. We'll see you next time on Scandal Sheet!
Copyright 2021, Thad Helsley Media, all rights reserved.